we're going to have a conversation with serial founder Sal Rehmetullah, who's the CEO of Worth AI. And we'll be welcoming him to our stage to talk about his experience as a founder, the work he's doing now at Worth, and advice he may have for the founders in our audience about how to build impactful AI fintech products. Juan Scarlett, who's the managing director of OneValley Ventures, will be leading this discussion. Juan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alec. Hello, everyone. I'm Juan Scarlett, Managing Director of OneValley Ventures, where we invest in pre-seed and seed stage companies that are developing next generation software technologies to solve what we think are really high value problems across a variety of different industries. I'm excited to be joined today by Sal Rehmetullah. Sal is the CEO and co-founder of Worth AI. And he's a former co-founder and president of Stacks Payments, a payment processing unicorn that he scaled to over 100 million in revenues. We really don't have time to list all of his many accomplishments and awards, but just know that this is really a treat. Sal, it's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for joining us today.
No, absolutely happy to be here. And so far, all the presentations and fireside chats have all been great. So really appreciate you guys putting something on.
Well, thank you so much. So we're really excited to get into the work that you're doing at Worth AI. I think the startups in the audience will really gain a lot from hearing about your journey. Why don't we start there? Could you share your background story from your early days at Morgan Stanley to founding and scaling your first company and to now what you're doing now with Worth?
Yeah, absolutely. I know we have like 15 minutes, so I'll try to give the abbreviated version of it. But yeah, no, I started off in corporate America. I worked for Morgan Stanley, did private banking, equity research. I ended up working for Deloitte Consulting. I did a lot of global transformation work. So, if you think 12 years ago, it was like the new wave of going into the cloud. And so that was sort of that prefaces and sort of led that for companies like HP, VMware, Symantec, but I did it on a global level. I lived in 34 countries across 3.5 years. I started a company called Anaplan out in San Francisco. So I was, one of the first hires there, part of the, I was not part of the founding team. It was founded. I joined them as that sort of kicked it off, but, got to see a company go from 10 people to 2,000 people, raise $500 million of capital and got to ring the New York Stock Exchange bell. So it was a fun highlight there. And then decided to move to Orlando, Florida to actually start our last company called Stacks Payments, where we did integrated payments. So think Square, Stripe, or really about like online commerce and consolidating it, where we did embedded finance. So think about interacting with different software companies and inside the payment ecosystem. And so we did that for almost 10 years. So, people always talk about like the great success we've had so quickly. So we consider ourselves the 10-year overnight success is what I'd call it. And we scaled the business to 40 billion of payments, the third largest processor in the United States. We serviced over 100,000 small and medium-sized businesses. And then we sold the company for a little over $1 billion last February. We still large shareholders, still big fans of it. It was the first unicorn out of Central Florida, first brother-sister team. So if you have 4 more hours, I'll tell you how I can work with my sister. But those are usually the 2 questions I get is how do you build a unicorn and how do you still work with your sister? And funny enough, we're doing it again. And so, leaving that, I took a break, traveled a little bit, and sort of came back to the fact that not only are you just a serial entrepreneur, but like to solve large problems. And at Worth, the main mission, if you sort of think about sort of our background was underwriting small to medium-sized businesses that needed credit and payments. It's sort of interesting in today's day and age that you have a ton of stuff in consumer finance. Like any of us can open up, an Apple credit card off of our phone in like 2 minutes. But if you try to do that same transaction for a business, it requires like 2 years of audited financials, 3 months of bank statements, a full P&L and forecast. And for all the startups that are on here right now, I'm sure, just getting whatever business licenses accomplished and getting set up there, it's just a huge cumbersome process. And we really looked at it and said, like, why has there never been a business credit score? And so we went out to solve that mission. We partnered with, the IRS directly. We're backed by Equifax. We put in millions of dollars of our own money into it. And, we're about 6, 7 months in, really excited about the progress we've made. And, we're in some of the largest institutions now and the first ones to create a business credit score and really focused on improving the onboarding experience for small and medium-sized businesses.
Amazing, amazing background, amazing story. And And I mean, offline, I'd love to talk to you more about, working with siblings. Actually, I have several myself, and we've never actually been able to work together as like successfully as the two of you have. So amazing. But I definitely would love to dig more into the story of Worth. As you know, you guys sort of spent a decade of your lives building Stacks payments and getting into that amazing exit. And would love to understand sort of why you decided to jump back in and potentially spend the next decade of your life,
Yeah.
building Worth AI, and sort of what was it really about the small business underwriting and lending issue that really caught your interest, and what was the aha moment there?
Yeah. So look, we've been blessed to have had great exits, right? So personally, it's not really a financial motivation. I'm an immigrant. We were Pakistani, moved to the United States, first generation to go to college, et cetera. When you start to look at sort of the lending ecosystem or credit ecosystem, specifically to small businesses, it's not going to be a surprise to you when you look at the statistics, right? It's going to be 76% white male, 56 average. And when you start to look at some of the statistics that come through, I truly believe that banks in the world want that to be different. But the reality is, when you think about the credit models and the things that have historically existed, they're based on general linear regression models, which is based on history. So when all these buzzwords around AI and stuff, and there's been versions of this stuff that's existed, but it's always used historical information to drive. And so when you start to think about the business credit ecosystem, you actually didn't have a ton of business information available. So when you think like a FICO credit score, why is it that, we have personal credit scores, but not a business side? It's really the fact that businesses haven't had their information online. And so you had COVID, which really pushed all businesses, including the states, Secretary of State's business licenses, to really digitize their business, right? All of us switched to online ACH payrolls. All of us got a QuickBooks account. All of us put in business licenses and filed our sales tax and our withholding tax online. And so for the first time, you had all this information come through. And then you have this, the new concept of generative AI and something that can inherit large pieces of information come into the ecosystem that can actually go through all this. And that was sort of the birth of why we believe we could do something with it. And so our goal was to be able to bring together, how can we ingest millions and millions of data and actually predict out a financial forecast for these small to medium-sized businesses. And it's really mission centric, right? We believe every business owner should know their worth. And we really wanted the small to medium-sized business to sort of be empowered. And our first and foremost aspect is to do that. But to be able to get somebody to adopt a Worth score for the society to be able to accept it, you need to win the banks and the enterprises first. And so we had to build an ecosystem where the enterprises that do all the compliance and aspects of collecting this information, how can we get them to utilize our info first and then disseminate that product out? And so we launched that product a year ago, and this February, we're going to launch our Worth score to SMBs directly. So it's worthscore.com. You can join the wait list, but really think of it like Credit Karma of your own business. So you get to see a full ecosystem with basically just two fields. You need your EIN number and your address, and all of a sudden we can provide you a full holistic viewpoint of that.
Really interesting. It's incredible. So you really have these multiple missions that you're undertaking here. One being, really empowering small business owners, and providing them with more access to capital, and then also on the other end, for the lenders, the banks, the fintechs themselves, empowering them with these tools to better process the information that they're getting, the data that they're getting from these small businesses, enabled by these new AI technologies.
Yeah.
Really interesting. So I mean, I'm curious to you mentioned one thing about this idea of more of the bank's interactions and processes moving online. That's also sort of led to this other issue, and amazing and incredibly increasing issue of sort of fraud, particularly within small business lending, but also obviously on the consumer side as well. Could you tell us a little quickly about sort of what you're doing and what your product is doing to prevent that?
Yeah, and when you think about sort of the ecosystem, it's funny because I know this whole conference on AI, and the way I look at like AI for me, if we just back it up, it's like saying you don't hear too many businesses say that we're in the cloud anymore, right? Like you don't hear that, and that's how I feel like 10 years from now, generative AI and these large language models will just be fundamentally part of the concept of the way people go to business. And so when you think about that in the same fraud layer, I think sophistication of fraud is continuously evolving. Like that is getting more and more sophisticated. And so it's at the forefront of everyone's mind, right? And then with these new pieces of technology, you have deepfake and more information that you can grab, and a lot of these financial stories that you constantly hear becoming more and more relevant. I think the general versions of fraud are there, but I think these tool sets are also available to help drive that as well. And so with AI, there's the ability to say that, hey, you can fake more, but there's also ways to check more, right? And so you're going to see an ever evolving conversation here. I don't think that, we're ever going to walk away from a conversation of fraud is solved, or these like people just get more and more sophisticated. But going back to our background, I mean, we did 40 billion of payments on our balance sheet with never a single fraud case of ours. That led to something, monumental in terms of, bad actors. Did we see them? Absolutely. Did we have losses? Absolutely, but nothing that was monumental in that way, because that's just part of doing business. And so in today's day and age, I think each person has to put that in the forefront of the way that they go to market. And we continuously feel like you got to empower the small, medium-sized businesses at the level to be able to do that, because a lot of the enterprises are well-resourced to be able to handle it.
Excellent. Amazing. Well, I want to make sure we continue to move on here, because we got a few other items we want to make sure we discuss while we have you. But there's been this theme today, certainly in our discussions around fundraising, and obviously you and your co-founders at Stacks had a great success in raising capital, and at Worth already, you've already raised a very healthy seed round. Could you tell us a little bit more about, one, I guess, what you hope to accomplish with that seed round capital at Worth, but then also just provide us with some great advice for founders, about approaching their pre-seed and seed funding rounds in today's fundraising environment.
Yeah, look, I mean, for us, we've had great success where we obviously can leverage our backgrounds and things like that at this day and age. But if I give the advice, I think there's a couple of things that we learned a long time away, right? Like the one line I'll give you is like, cool is not a business, right? Like, so there are so many people that have like really cool feature sets and cool things, but that doesn't mean that it's something that's viable. And it's not to take away from the idea or the portion, but you do have to come to yourself and say, like, is this scalable? Is it a business model? Does it make money? And I think sometimes we get so caught up in like, all I need is that feature set, or all I need is that, or all I need is that, which just isn't the case. I think early traction, your customers, when you have an MVP product, a minimal viable product, they will dictate the direction you want to go, and you'll know quickly. And even with Worth, like, we've pivoted 3 to 4 times as we came to market and said, here's the Worth score. And we realized that Bank of America doesn't need my score. I mean, they have 14 data scientists and a billion pieces of information, but they love the way that we got that much information with only 2 fields. So they're like, you know what? We'd love to see your onboarding product. And we quickly pivoted and said, okay, that makes sense. We should sell to onboarding for enterprises, and the SMB will care more about the score, right? So you have to learn to pivot. And so I think in the fundraising capital, I'd say there's 2 things. It's storytelling with evidence, right? I think that an art that people don't teach is like, tell the story, paint the vision, paint where you're going, but what are the accolades that you have to do to get there, right? And those are your KPIs, and you need to know and understand what that success looks like. You don't have to be $100 million business tomorrow, but what's the next milestone for yourself and how you're tracking against it? Because I promise you, any PE conversation or conversation you have, the second it leaves your mouth, it goes into one of their CRM systems, and they'll come back to you and be like, Sal told me they're going to do $4 million at XYZ, and they will check it, and they will look at your track record. And I think track record plays a lot. And then lastly, I think compliment yourself, right? So I would lie to you if I said that I know everything. I've had a ton of success, but Sanira, my co-founder partner, brings a ton of different value to the table. Can we both do the same job? Of course, but she's absolutely better at some things, and I'm absolutely better at some things. So how can you find people where you're not great to bring into it? And then lastly, you are the best salesperson, right? So I think the thing that you also see is you see great technical founders or areas, but they're like, I'll just hire a salesperson to sell it. That's false. If you cannot sell your product in this day and age, in this day and world, you just won't win, because you won't be able to deliver the passion and understanding the customer. And you have to be at the front lines to be able to do that, at least in the early days. And then, yes, when you're scaling and doing those things, you're going to bring in great leaders that have done it. But I'd say those are sort of the things that are sort of create that great recipe to be able to bring in capital.
Wow, Sal, I got to say that was an absolute masterclass on fundraising and an early stage scaling. So thank you so much for that. A couple of quick questions here. I guess one, obviously, this event is focused on how AI is changing the financial services landscape, and obviously you see a huge opportunity with AI-powered business underwriting and lending. But Tell us about another area of fintech you think is really most ripe for disruption by AI technologies in the near future.
Yeah, I think that there is I don't want to call it like replacement of humans because I believe that all humans will continuously like you need people there. I think we'll get more efficient. But I do think that there are some random processes that just haven't been touched since archaic days. Like for anybody that's ever like, I don't know, filed a Delaware certificate when you raise capital, et cetera, like you have to get it notarized by like four people, then a carrier has to pick it up, and then you have to like physically take it somewhere. Like that whole process, there's got to be a better way, right? And so when you think about AI, like imagine me getting that doc in my email and then it automatically scheduling somebody to go through those steps, so I don't have to do all those things. When you think about like home automation, like right now when I don't know, my HVAC isn't working, I go on and I look for an HVAC supplier, then I go through the Google reviews, then I have to figure out if I'm free at 2:30 to be able to book my time. Imagine that entire process being gone. So you're going to see people like systematically solve those 15 questions that are all disparate today that all come to me. So I think you're going to see a lot of things in that space. And it won't just be on the personal side. I think it'll be on the business side. It'll be on the banking side. It's really just going to be about connectivity in the way that we operate and really making our lives easier.
Excellent. Yeah, I totally agree. I think there's these unlimited numbers of processes and workflows that we see in our everyday lives of both consumers and on the business side that are just absolutely ripe for AI technologies in the near future here. So very much looking forward to the companies that are building those. Last thing, Sal, what is the one piece of advice you have for founders in the audience looking to build a meaningful fintech business that we can end on?
Yeah, I sort of alluded to it in the beginning, but I think it's truly like, focusing on a narrow market, right? And being really, really good at it. I think a lot of people like love this, TAM slide and are like, I'm going to solve 45 verticals and 65 things. And that may be the case over time. But I think if you can be really, really great and get early customer wins, I think that will then dictate the direction of product and focus, right? And so to me, I think it has to start with customer first. I see too many people build just immensely amazing, but just really, really deep technology, really deep stuff. And like they don't hear the customer's voice up front. And so I think the sooner you can bring the people you're selling to into your process, bring them in, get the champions. Like Amazon and Jeff Bezos, for you, if you ever heard it, like they put an empty chair in every conference room to represent the voice of the customer. And it's that style of mentality that you need to culturally permeate for yourself. And if you're a team of one or you're a team of 20, I think how quickly can you get whatever it is that you're building in front of a customer? I think it's the quickest way to seeing success for yourself. And it doesn't mean you're going to get it right the first time, but I think that's the best version of feedback for you. And it's something that I think can help propel and grow quickly.
Wonderful. I couldn't agree more. Well, listen, Sal, unfortunately, I believe we do have to end on that. Thank you so much again for joining us today and being so generous with your time and for sharing all these incredible experiences and wonderful insights with our audience today.
Well, really appreciate it. If you guys feel free to, find me on LinkedIn, shoot me a message if you need anything. For the business owners, you can check us out at worthscore.com. There's a wait list for the ones that come out at February. So I'd love to have you all part of the platform.
Thank you, Sal.
Thanks, guys.